drop it like it's Biden's poll numbers. All right, power panel. Cenk, Uygur, Michael Shure, Trae Crowder's with us. Hey, Trae, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me. Glad to be back.
No problem. Happy to have you. We are going to talk about those aforementioned dropping Biden poll numbers in a minute. So everybody hang in there for that. And there's plenty of fire in this show. There's no question about that. But speaking of which, we go to Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. An old flame, if you will. Michael, take it away.
So many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, who has no credibility left by any measure. He's only in it for himself. He's now defending himself in civil actions and criminal actions. And when do they break with him? Because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members.
Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, as we said, she was calling for the deprogramming of Trump's MAGA base. But is that possible? Can it be done? And what plan does she have in mind to make it happen? Well, her strategy was not detail-filled in a conversation she had with Christiane Amanpour of CNN. And it involves a man who, as we sit here and as Cenk teased a little bit at the top of the show, is not beating Trump right now, at least according to some of the polls we've seen. Here we go.
You said you have to defeat them by defeating their leader. Their leader is Donald Trump. Even you have said that you expect him to be the Republican nominee. How does this change at all?
At this point, I think, sadly, he will still likely be the nominee, and we have to defeat him. And we have to defeat those who are the election deniers, as we did in 2020 and 2022. And we have to, just be smarter about how we are trying to empower the right people inside the Republican Party. So it is like a cult. And somebody has to break the break that momentum. And that's why I believe Joe Biden will defeat him. And hopefully then that will be the end and the fever will break. And then Republicans can try to get back to, fighting about issues among themselves and electing people who are at least, responsible and accountable.
The question remains, though, whether the former secretary understands what motivates these voters, these MAGA voters. And I'll leave that to you, I guess, to decide. Here is a little more from Hillary Clinton.
The base of the Republican Party, for whatever combination of reasons, and it is emotional and psychological, sees in him someone who speaks for them. And they are determined that they will continue to vote for him, attend his rallies, wear his merchandise, because for whatever reason, he and his very negative, nasty form of politics resonates with them. Maybe they don't like migrants. Maybe they don't like gay people or black people or the woman who got the promotion at work they didn't get. Whatever the reason, Make America Great Again was a bid for nostalgia, to return to a place where, people could be in charge of their lives, feel empowered, say what they want, insult whoever came in their way. And that was really attractive.
And so, you hear how Clinton sums it up. And she sums it up by talking about the negative parts of the people that support MAGA, the racism, the bigotry, the sexism, the anti-migrant part. But there are also lots of, real racists out there who don't get the support that Trump gets. It's a bigger umbrella that he thinks that he has over these people. And he actually responded to this. He heard this, apparently. He saw the interview. He responded to it. And then, Trump and his people, his MAGA people, sent out an email blast today saying essentially this: President Trump has said countless times that they're only coming after him because he stands in their way from coming after you. And Hillary Clinton just confirmed that to be true. Tens of millions of Americans will reject the Democrat Party's re-education camp agenda in November of 2024 when we make Donald Trump the 47th president of the United States. That's Caroline Levitt, a spokesman for Make America Great Again Incorporated. So you do, Cenk, see the Trump people jumping on this, because when Hillary Clinton said things like deplorables in 2015 and 2016, they jumped on that to great success. She's not the candidate, but do you think it's important?
Yeah, so look, I feel that this is 50-50 again, just like the deplorables comment. I think it's complicated and nuanced. In a minute, we're going to show you a video where Trump supporters basically answered this question that Michael was talking to them at a campaign event, and they actually talked about whether they're in a cult. We're going to get to that, but so I thought all along, and I even wrote it in my book, Justice is Coming, that the deplorable comment was half right. So half of Trump's guys are deplorables. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. We'll take a shot at Michael. So yeah, there you go. Nice plug there. tyt.com/justice. Okay, seriously. So yeah, there's some folks that are feel displaced. Their rightful places at the top, and now it's not at the top. Now they have to be equal to everyone, and that really bothers them. Is it conscious for most of them? No, I don't. Probably even for the deplorable half, it's not conscious for most of them. It's mostly they have this uneasy feeling about how America's not the same anymore, and it doesn't look the same. Their neighborhood doesn't look the same, and they can't say the same things, etc. But the other half is the half that Hillary Clinton never addresses. So here, she makes the same exact mistake, but then add in a disastrous cherry on top. So she thinks, look, it's partly emotional, psychological for these folks. Okay, yeah, I think it is for some of them. But for a lot of them, they just hate the establishment. And Donald Trump was the first mega star in politics to come along and give a middle finger to the establishment. And that quarter of the country, half of the Republicans, went nuts. They've been waiting for that for so long. And hence it made them feel like he was the only one that was honest. And now that's, of course, the most ironic thing in the world, because he's a legendary con man and a pathological liar, but he finally said something honest that no other politician says. That's why, by the way, Bernie was popular, because he said something similar, but he doesn't say it as harshly, and that's why progressives in Congress drive me crazy, the way that they are so damn polite to the establishment, when in reality, if you had one progressive say the anti-establishment things that Trump says, they'd run away with this thing, right? And so you don't need the racism, you don't need any of that stuff. So again, I think Hillary Clinton's half right, but half wrong. And when she says things like, the fever will break. No, come on, that's preposterous. Same thing Biden says, they're not getting it, because they think, oh, the establishment is definitely right, and the great majority of the country totally agrees. We're just going through a temporary fever, and once we're done with the fever, then everybody will go back to the status quo being great. All of my friends in the cocktail circuit think it's great. I don't understand, right? And so, and then she says the re-education thing, which she didn't quite say it like that. But you don't know enough about Republican politics to know that they're going to run with that like crazy, and they're going to pretend you're going to set up actual re-education camps, etc. So I wouldn't have started that fire. We'll get into that debate in a second too. But before we go to that debate and we go to the Trump supporters countering, let me go to Trae and get his initial thoughts on this.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you guys are saying. First of all, the whole thing about how there's a bunch of racists, they don't have the support Trump does. I've always said that I think the racism and bigotry is kind of just the icing on the FU cake that he baked for these people to hurl in the face of the establishment or the elitist left as they perceive it. So there's definitely a lot more to it going on. And like you said, she had to know. I mean, she literally had to know what the response to this would be. But it's kind of like, back when she made the deplorables comment, and now, I see it, and part of me is like, I hear you, sister. I know where you're coming from, but this is really going to rile them up. You know what I mean? The only thing that could rile them up more than this would be like if Barack Obama called him a bunch of stupid trailer trash or something. It's all right, I'm allowed to say it. But like, there's very few things that could get them more hot and bothered than Hillary making these kind of statements. It's giving them bulletin board material, in the Trump campaign, feeding right into, exactly what they thrive on, which is feeling very, very strongly that the establishment, the left, that they look down their nose at them, think they're inherently better than them, and have no place for them in American society. So yeah, they're going to take that ball and run with it. But at the same time, she ain't entirely wrong, in my opinion.
First of all, I think it's great that Clay has that Clay County, Tennessee background, because without it, you wouldn't know that he was from Clay County, Tennessee. So that's super helpful. One of the things that Hillary Clinton did in 2015, 2016 with deplorables was that it was right and it was politically just tone deaf and stupid to have said it, and that bore out. And I think that's what Trae is saying as well. And I think in this case, it's the same thing to a degree, but it doesn't matter because she's not the nominee. And the people that don't like Hillary Clinton, that are Donald Trump supporters, are not going to be moved by. They're already motivated by Hillary Clinton in the recesses of their minds. I don't think this is that big a deal. And I do think that there is an agreement that once Trump is off the stage, and I think that was the context of what she was saying, maybe I'm wrong, but once Trump is off the stage, that the fever pitch will lower. I think
no way, 0% chance.
Once he is not part of it, the cult of personality, and that's what I think this is to a degree, and I think a lot of politics is a cult of personality. I think that's what happens. But I think that once he is gone, I've talked about this before, I think with you, Cenk, where I think it's like, people who come out to watch Donald Trump are like people who watch a golf tournament when Tiger Woods is playing. If Tiger Woods isn't playing, there are a lot of people who aren't watching golf. I think a lot of these people who came because of Donald Trump are going to leave when he does. So that's what I mean, and that's why I think she is right to a degree about the fever pitch. While he's there, and he is there now, and he's there in a major way, that's not just going to go away. It's definitely not going to go away. It's not naive to think that the moderates within the House, as a matter of fact, with no leadership in the House right now, Donald Trump has a bigger hold on the Republican Party than he had 3 days ago. So for now, it's not going to happen.
Okay, so we can continue to disagree about the fever breaking. There's no chance that it breaks, in my opinion. None, zero.
Well, you think it's going to stay? Wait, excuse me. You think it's going to stay when Donald Trump is gone?
So, Michael, your point about Tiger Woods is a good one. And so a lot of his voters will stay home. They'll get disgruntled with politics, et cetera. But if you think that the Republican Party is then going to go back to the party of Bob Dole, Mitt Romney,
but I think that they
Liz
will.
Cheney,
If he loses, I think that they will start to revert to a degree to some of that. But I don't think it's going to go away at all. But I also don't think that these are people that will get disgruntled with politics. I think these are people who are not gruntled with politics. I think that they are interested in Donald Trump, and they're there for that party. A lot of them, not all of them.
They'll just find Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz,
no, but those people won't be, because of the cult of personality, those people won't be taken seriously nationally in the way Trump has. He had a platform before he got there. They have a platform, but it's very different than what his was.
Michael, look, the Republican voters despise the establishment, and they're never going to have that fever break and go, they're okay. It's just not going to happen. So we can disagree about it. But Trae, get your thoughts real quick before we go to those voters.
I mean, I think there's something about Trump that like you just can't coach. I don't know that I believe that anyone, like Tiger Woods, I think that's a good analogy. I don't know that anyone's really going to fill those shoes. I mean, famous last words, but I just don't see it. You know what I mean? I don't think the fever is going to completely break. Those people will remain there, but the Republican Party's, if he loses especially, they'll have to change in some way, right? It won't be like sustainable anymore, I feel like. I mean, they have this like strategy of like, antagonizing more and more demographics of Americans and more narrowly defining the people they're appealing to. And I just don't see how that's going to be successful in the long term. So they'll either, I don't know, they're going to have to change or just die out eventually. Hopefully, maybe that's too optimistic. But I mean, yeah, I don't think that Trump can be replicated exactly. He's just too different.
Okay, well, of course, we'll see how that develops. So Michael was in South Carolina recently, talked to those Trump supporters, and actually asked them like how they feel about being in a, whether they think they're in a cult. And so let's see what their answer is.
All the economists are saying the economy is on the rebound, historic lows in unemployment right now. Does that impact you?
As a matter of fact, I don't believe any of that. That's not what I witnessed, so I don't believe it.
And did you believe, I guess pre-pandemic, because that's kind of a blip, but pre-pandemic when President Trump was in office, did you believe the metrics then?
Not from the mainstream media, but anything that he said generally in his administration, I believed.
So if it was coming from him, it was gospel. Because there are a lot of people that say, well, that's turning a blind eye to things if you're only trusting the person who's saying it. Almost it's cult-like. Does this feel cult-like at all to you?
No, not at all. In fact, what's cult-like to me is watching the mainstream media and listening to the existing administration.
Well, look, guys, again here, I think half wrong, half right. So half wrong is the obvious part. No, Michael's right. Those are the same numbers from the same organizations. They're putting it out during Trump. They're putting it out during Biden. The Trump numbers pre-pandemic were pretty good on some of the things like unemployment, et cetera. And when Trump quoted those numbers, those guys were like, yeah, of course, these numbers are the greatest things. God bless those institutions. When they say it's even better under Biden, they're like, no, goddamn those institutions and goddamn those numbers. I'm not gonna believe anything other than the cult leader, right? On the other hand, well, that guy said, I don't believe anything from the mainstream media. And I can make an argument for mainstream media being a cult and telling you that the politicians are honest people that are having real debates and have a certain ideology. I think that people, including some Trump supporters who say, no, that's total nonsense. They do exactly what their donors tell them to do, have an excellent case to make. In fact, I agree with that case 100%. And so it's a cult of a different sort. And if you challenge a mainstream media follower, hey, do you really believe that these millions of dollars that they're getting, and what Mitch McConnell's getting is evil? They'll say, oh, of course, Mitch McConnell's a terrible guy getting money from those corporations. Nancy Pelosi, the same money comes into her. Do you think she's evil and bad and corrupt? They'll say, oh, no way. Nancy Pelosi's an angel. Tell me you're not in a cult. You sure you're not in a cult? So I'm curious what you guys think. Trae, I'll start with you this time.
I mean, yeah, definitely. There's, some like people see things the way they want to. I mean, that's why it was so dangerous about them establishing, the whole fake news thing, and anything they don't like, they can just dismiss as not being real. And that's, chapter 1 of their playbook now. And that's extremely frustrating because you can't use facts to reason your way out of a dynamic like that. And everybody now lives in a bubble on both sides. And I agree with you. You're right. But I do think that I feel like the leftist version of that, to me, like they're not making, the equivalent of Trump or death flags or like festooning their entire vehicle with his face or painting portraits of him with 6-pack abs and like doing the Heisman at the goal line, stiff arming Joe Biden and stuff like that. So like it feels a little different and a little cultier to me. But yeah, I mean, you definitely have a point there.
Yeah, but Trae, I'll just say this before I kick it over to Michael. So you're right about that, but that's 50-50 too. When it dips into violence, it's a disaster. It's not anything like Nancy Pelosi supporters. I don't know any Nancy Pelosi supporters who are like, oh my God, let's go leave the cocktail party and attack someone. Okay, so that's not gonna happen. At the same time, part of the reason why the Democrats don't have that cult of personality around them is because they don't really have a leader that fights for them. None of their leaders fight for them, so it's hard to rally around the base and make rocky pictures of what? Who? Biden or Pelosi? Schumer? Is that right? Come on, right? So go ahead.
But you don't have to have that, right? To have it be honest and successful. And what Trae called it a bubble, right? Which is better than calling it a cult. There's a difference when you have people who will blindly support somebody, who will go to their rallies when he wasn't a candidate and are now going when he is a candidate, and just agreeing with every single thing he says and dismissing fact. I mean, that's a little bit different. That is almost, you're entranced by somebody, rather than, yes, the mainstream media. You can criticize them. I'm not as critical of them as you are, Cenk. But there's a little bit of a difference, actually, a great big difference between following one person the way these people do in politics. It doesn't happen a lot. It didn't happen even, I wouldn't liken the Bernie stuff to that either. I wouldn't liken, maybe George Wallace is the last time we've had anything like that. And so and even Wallace didn't have a hold. He lost the nomination. But so I don't think you can make the same. I think it's a false equivalency to call what you're saying with great merit about money in politics and the media the same as what they're saying about Donald Trump and what we're seeing on the trail.
Well, Bernie had a different kind of cult, right? I know what the Hillary Clinton people and the Joe Biden people will say, oh yeah, there's the Bernie bros, they're terrible and stuff. No, Bernie's cult was.
It wasn't a cult, Cenk.
No, I know. It definitely wasn't a cult. First of all, they don't even exist anymore. They're not blindly following Bernie. Right. They're not giving him praise for no reason out of nowhere. We've criticized him a number of times and how he's handled himself in the last couple of years. But in a lighthearted way, the followers of Bernie, they love him with the mittens, remember, at the inauguration, and they love when the little bird lands. It's like the most pleasant followers you can imagine. Yeah, I mean,
it's a meme thing. It's not really. And one thing on that, when Bernie Sanders went to Charlottesville, Virginia, shout out for Charlottesville, Virginia, and he spoke at the University of Virginia, a student asked him, what are you supposed to do if you're really progressive and you're getting Democrats? I don't know who to vote for, et cetera. This was during the 2020 election. And Bernie Sanders said, suck it up and make that vote because it's going to make a difference. And that's different. Donald Trump would never say that about any other Republican. And if he were to lose the nomination, which doesn't appear he will, at least not without imprisonment, and even then, who knows, you see the difference there. He would never say anything like that because it's about Trump, not about the big picture.
All right, super last thing, you've heard all of our points on this. It was a little bit of a Grant Williams moment. I don't think you get in Jimmy Butler's face in the middle of the playoffs. So and I'm not trying to compare Donald Trump to Jimmy Butler, who I really like. But her saying they need to be deprogrammed, she should know way better than that because it's gonna allow Trump to say, when they come after me, it isn't because I'm a lifelong criminal and con man and I actually broke all these laws. It's because they're coming after you. Which is actually not at all true. They're not coming after you at all. But now they get to pretend that that's what's happening because the right wingers, let's keep it real. And if you're a right winger, don't tell me this isn't true, are a lot more conspiratorial. I mean, you mention any kind of camp, they're like, we know it, we're all going to be put into Hobbit homes and FEMA camps. Never happened, never gonna happen. But they believe it with 2,000% intensity. So, but at the same time, you can't worry too much about what psychotic people think. No, Obama never did FEMA camps. You guys never learned that lesson that maybe, just maybe, your leaders, yes, our leaders often lie, we point that out. Your leaders lie 24/7 and you still can't seem to see it. So that part is cult-like for sure.
Can you put that in NHL parlance instead of NBA parlance?
Only if I could use a Wayne Gretzky reference.
Sure.
Okay. Anyways, that's for another day. I remember when Messi, got in the face. Messier, that's right. Got in the face of Gretzky. Did he? Who knows? Okay. Only two
valiant
guys.
effort.
Now, that was a valiant effort. Trae's right. That was a valiant effort.
When Lemieux did it to Gretzky, well, that was a thing with the Penguins, I'll tell you.
Now look at you with the team, too.
Okay. Anyways, we got to take a break. When we come back, now Biden's trouble. We'll talk about that when we return. Back on TYT, Cenk, Michael, Trae with you guys, but also Lord God is my witness. They just became a Young Turks member, so that's it. We got powerful forces on our side, let alone Jen Kenobi, 018, brother of Obi-Wan, obviously, and Camille Terry upgraded membership. That allows us to keep the lowest level at $5 a month. So we appreciate you. You could do the upgrades to the join button as well. And last one, no more report for you, gifted 5 Young Turks memberships. Way to look out for others. Michael.
Pay it forward, exactly. And let's move on to our sitting president and take a look at this.
There's been one poll after another poll after another poll this week that has shown that the Republicans are just absolutely bashing Democrats when it comes to issues.
Look at this. Republicans over Democrats on issues like inflation, the economy, immigration. These are 25, nearly 30-point margins creating jobs.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Huge numbers.
So, despite the best efforts of the Biden administration, Bidenomics is not really resonating with people. You see these voters overwhelmingly favoring Republicans on issues related to the economy, and it begs a crucial question: are the Democrats, guys, failing on? Is it on messaging? Is it on policy? Or is it both of those things? The three of us are going to try and figure that out. But first, let's talk a little bit more about the poll that Joe Scarborough was just discussing. A new Marquette Law School poll it's a national survey, finds a close presidential race. Former President Donald Trump receives 51%, and President Joe Biden gets 48% among registered voters, while Biden has a 51% advantage over Trump's 49% among likely voters, those who say they are certain they will vote in the presidential election. So you look at that and then look at this. I mean, we can see it broken down right here. Go line item. Inflation, 23 points to the Republicans' favor. The economy, 24 points. Immigration and border, 24 points. 19 on creating jobs. Foreign relations, 5 points. Medicare and Social Security, we start going to the other side of the seesaw. 2 points to the Democrats, 9 points to the Democrats on abortion policy, and climate change, 20 points. I will say that when I'm out in the field talking to these voters and talking to just about any voter, people are talking about gas prices constantly. The inflation number is the one that is I wouldn't say dumbed down, but reduced down. The lowest common denominator is gas prices. How much do we have to put in to fill our tank? How much do we have to spend to fill our tank? Respondents were asked who would handle these issues better, but the question about creating jobs is especially interesting because even Fox News was flabbergasted by the number of new jobs that were created under the Biden administration in September. Numbers released today. Listen here.
The September jobs report just released, it shows the U.S. adding 336,000 jobs. That is a big number. That's 166,000 more than economists were expecting.
I want to start with a very hot number. Non-farm payrolls, 336,000. Wow. That is a big jump. That is bigger than the range that I was even looking at.
Wow, whoa. We don't hear that on Fox when it's a favorable number for the Democrats in the White House very often. According to data from the Labor Department's Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. economy created roughly 6.4 million jobs during Trump's first 3 years in office. Meanwhile, in the first 32 months of Biden's term, the U.S. economy has created nearly 14 million jobs. In those numbers, Trump's last year was excluded because it's not fair really to put all of that during COVID, all those job losses on Biden, even though it seems voters still trust Trump more than they do Biden on the issues pertaining to the economy. Cenk?
Yeah, so some of this is substantive and so Democrats I think should deliver better for the American people, their voters, et cetera. But for these numbers in particular, that's a minority. These you have to break them down in two different ways, policy and politics. In terms of policy, this is grossly unfair. The American people have it totally wrong. So look, I'll give you two examples here on the policy front. First of all, Medicare and Social Security, only a 2-point difference for the Democrats. Are you kidding me? The Democrats have always protected Medicare and Social Security. The Republicans propose to cut it every time they get power. Every time, you said we're worried about the deficit, blah, blah, blah. They don't like it. Rich people, they think, have to pay for it to some degree. So they're like, screw the elderly, we don't want it, we don't want it. They want to raise the retirement age. They want to, cap the amount of money you're getting from Social Security and Medicare. For the Democrats to have only a 2-point advantage on that is a crime against the truth, okay? And then on the creating jobs number, it's the exact opposite of what's true. So Trump has a 49-30 lead against Biden, and a stunning 19-point lead when Biden has created twice as many jobs. Michael just read you the actual numbers. And even Fox News and CNBC, the two most conservative stations in America, are like, holy cow, look at all these jobs. We're at literally record unemployment. I'm considering running against Biden, and I'm still telling you, are you crazy? The jobs numbers are Biden's best asset. Like, he's done really well with that. You've got to be fair, right? Nope. Losing by 19 points on that. 19 points. It's nearly unrecoverable, which leads me to the next part of it, which is politics. On the politics, you have to confess, Biden has been awful. The economy is always the #1 issue in a campaign. And this year, there's no giant foreign policy thing. Yeah, you think Ukraine's big, and oh, we hate China, that's big. Not really. I mean, the Iraq war was gigantic, made all the difference in the 2004 election. So you don't have an enormous, all-consuming issue like that in foreign policy at this point. So that means the economy is even more important. And there, Biden is down by 24. Do you think Biden has enough charisma to overcome a 24-point deficit on the economy? The fact that he has no charisma, no marketing, no optics, no nothing, can't argue for himself or his own party if his life depended on it, is why he's in this hole in the first place. He's not gonna like all of a sudden turn Dark Brandon into laser eyes. He's not gonna go into a phone booth and turn from Clark Kent into Superman. He's gonna say in every speech, oh, I love my Republican friends, but these MAGA guys are a little too much. They got a lot too much malarkey, and he's gonna be down by 36. If we think democracy's on the line, this ain't gonna get it done. Trae.
Yeah, I mean, part of this I'm kind of sympathetic to a little bit. I mean, it's like Michael said earlier, he talks to people, they talk about gas prices, inflation, that type of thing. Like, everybody talks about how like the economy's booming, it's doing great. But I mean, like, everything is so expensive. Cost of living is insane. Housing crisis, healthcare costs. I had a buddy, him and his wife this week had a baby. They had some unexpected complications. It's going to financially cripple them for like ever, you know? And I mean, and so people look around, they see these like jobs reports or whatever, hear these numbers, and like, things are great. And you're like, I don't know, it don't seem great. Have you seen how much eggs cost or whatever? So I kind of get that, the basic element of it, but I don't. It is maddening that those people like think that Donald Trump or the Republicans are the answer to it. That I can understand being upset and frustrated about it. You know, it's a Democratic administration and things are the way they are. But I don't understand thinking that Trump is going to actually help or do anything. And it's like you said, the Medicare numbers and the jobs numbers is like you said, that's the exact opposite of the actual truth. I feel like those two kind of let you know that it really wouldn't even matter. They wouldn't be getting credit for it regardless of if things were better. But yeah, these people think that like Joe Biden just like opens a secret door in his wall and then turns up the gas prices knob or something. Like they don't understand how it all actually works. But at the end of the day, you know, it kind of doesn't matter. They're not going to get credit for it regardless. And I don't really know what you do about that. The Republicans have just long been, however unfairly it may be, they've long been the party of like fiscal concerns, fiscal conservatism, that type of thing. They're the money people, and people buy into that regardless of how untrue it is, you know. And the problems, a lot of them come back to, you know, corporate greed and Republican obstructionism and things like that. But, you know, they don't know. They think Republicans, they're good with money. I don't like how much things cost. Maybe we should vote for them. And it drives me crazy. But, you know, I don't really know what to do about it, because I agree also with what you said about Biden, his charisma and overcoming it. I don't see that happening either, but it's maddening.
Yeah, and they're gonna the charisma numbers are gonna really hurt Biden if it is in fact Biden and Trump. And you know, to what Trae's saying is, you know, the inflation and the economy is never a wedge issue; it's a major issue. But the Republicans are very crafty about turning it into an eggs and gas issue, which makes it in and of itself a wedge issue, an issue that people can talk about in everybody in almost a universal way around the country. You look at these numbers too, which is bad news for the Democrats, is that presumably in these very lopsided polls, there are a lot of Democrats being polled here. It's not just clearly Republicans who are saying these things. It would be far more lopsided if it was only Republicans. That's what the Democrats have to be wary of, is that many of their own are seeing these problems in Biden's messaging. One thing to keep in mind, I always remind you this, is that there's still $1 billion to be spent. There are questions about why none of it's been spent already, which has a lot of the people who think Biden may not run interested. But when $1 billion are spent and the messaging really kicks in, even though the Democrats are not great messengers in this generation, this message is going to be a little bit louder and a little bit clearer. But like Cenk said, it's a long way to come back from.
Yeah, look, we're in the keeping it real portion of our programming, which is, by the way, all of our programming. But in terms of this specific issue, can Biden make a comeback? So remember, let me just break it down for you guys as usual. 4.5-point win last time in 2020. And he only won by 44,000 votes in the Electoral College. So that means any Democrat, not just Biden, any Democrat has to win by about 5 to make sure we have even a little bit of cushion, right? And remember, they say democracy's on the line. I'm not sure they believe it, I believe it. I know Trump. Trump is never gonna let go of power. Last time was a dry run. They tried a coup last time. He's never gonna let go, never. I'm super worried about Trump winning. So we've got to beat him by 5. Biden is now down by 2 in the average of polls around 1 to 2. So he's got to make up 6 to 7 there. And election day, he was at 52 back in 2020 in the favorability. He's now down to 39. He's got to make up 13 points in that race. In the economy, you see in this poll, he's down by 24. He's got to make that up. Okay, first question is why? Why are we going with a candidate who's in a 24-point hole, or a 13-point hole, or a 7-point hole, right? And do we think this is a candidate who has so much charisma that he's going to turn the marketing around and he's going to convince everyone that there are a lot of jobs and that the economy is doing great? I think that we risk being in a MAGA-like cult if we can't recognize how devastating those numbers are.
And Cenk, I mean, it's not just you who's recognizing the devastation of those numbers per a Politico report. It's Democrats themselves who think that this messaging, and listen, what's a presidential campaign? It's messaging. So Democrats in Washington are concerned about this. This is from Politico, and more than a dozen interviews across the party, Democrats offered various defenses and diagnoses of the administration's messaging strategy and what may need to change. But nearly all acknowledge that the Bidenomics message blitz has failed to brighten voters' view of the economy to date. Now, it doesn't take a genius to see that because of these numbers. But one of the theories as to why it's not is because people are still, and voters are still feeling the sting of inflation. Every year, Gallup asks Americans how they feel about the economy, and then compiles a list of what they call the Economic Confidence Index. Here's how the Economic Confidence Index has evolved from January of 2000 to September of 2023. You can see the index's highest measurement is plus 56 in January of 2000, and the lowest measurement is minus 72 in October of 2008. We're sitting now at minus 39. Now, the economic, feeling that is pervading in America right now is something that the Biden administration and the Biden campaign is going to have to address in some way. And the question is whether they can do that. You can see that the graph has gone up and down since then, but the Americans still felt worse about the economy than they did in April of 2020, and you know what was going on then. So this is a situation, and Trae, I'll go to you on this. Is there anything that you could see just in terms of around the country, people talking about this?
I mean, Biden and the Democrats have to do their part too, but I just will say, trying to find some kind of optimism, there is another side of this equation too. When the campaign kicks into high gear, what's going to happen with Trump? He's only going to be in court more. He's only going to have more trials, more opportunities to continue to screw up. He hasn't grown any less unhinged in recent years when he's on the main stage in front of the whole American electorate up there talking about boats hitting whales, sharks getting electrocuted, and whatever else he's been doing lately, and that type of thing. That also, I hope, will be a factor. Now, again, we started off the show talking about how entrenched his people already are, but I think that, that still could move the needle a little bit, like giving Trump enough, rope to hang himself with. But Biden's going to have to do, his part as well. But I just think that the polls right now, it is a little early. We haven't even really getting into it yet. And there's a lot of ball game left, you know what I mean, on both sides.
Yeah, I would prefer not to start with the team that's down 24 though. Even
yeah, sure.
Hey, don't worry, we're only in the 4th inning. We'll make up those 24 runs in the last 5 innings. Well,
you get a good line, though. I mean, on that bet, you'd make a lot.
Yeah.
Well, you would, but for good reason, because it's very, very unlikely. Look, last couple things here. First, Bidenomics. Come on, guys. Who thought that was going to be a good thing? Oh my God, the country will be electrified by the term Bidenomics.
Well, electrified is different. I mean, I'm going to say that I actually did think it was a good idea. You have to put something good in terms of this administration if you are the administration and the people around it. I think it was definitely a good risk. And like you said, Cenk, all the numbers refute what these poll numbers show. So if you are in the administration, you're trying to sell your accomplishments on the economy, fine, that's pretty great to do it. You don't think that the people are going to vote or are going to be polled in this way and see this crazy number of jobs that have been created and think that you're losing by 19 points on jobs. So I don't even think it was risky to say that. I think it was let's own something good rather than let them define who we are.
Yeah, I got you, but it didn't
And that's
work.
also consistent with how you talk about the Democrats too.
But so let me show the difference though, okay? So I like to be constructive in the critique, right? So if you go with Bidenomics, go with Joe-onomics, I don't care, right?
Joe economy? Do you like Joe economy?
Oh, that's economy as Joe meant them? No, don't do that.
No, don't.
Okay, so you do that label and then you come out. And so here's what Biden says about Bidenomics. Bidenomics is good, no malarkey, right? Now here's what I would say. Best job numbers ever, period. George Washington, where you at? Where you at, bro? Okay, literally ever, fact check it right now, lowest unemployment we've ever had, jobs. What did I do? I created millions of American jobs. Donald Trump, kiss my left cheek and my right cheek, I doubled your ass. Kiss both cheeks, I doubled your ass. What are you gonna do? I create jobs and you cry, so cry some more. Now, what's everybody gonna do? Everyone in the world is going to cover that speech. Everyone in America is going to see that, and then they're going to go, no way, man. He really twice as many as Trump? And all the local news, they're not going to listen to MSNBC, CNN, I get it. But all the local news is also going to cover that, and they're going to go, yeah, I mean, it is true. It is record low unemployment, and it is true that he did double Trump's numbers on jobs. Oh, that was so hard. But no, Biden, oh no, that would be not classy. He wants to lose in a super classy way. And so when the fascists take over, the good news is we'll be super classy. All right. All right, Trae, last word.
Yeah, well, Cenk, I just think you might be onto something there because I feel like we all know that American politics has long since morphed into like pro wrestling, essentially. Yes. And what you're basically pitching there is that Biden cut a promo on Trump on the subject of the economy. And so, I think that idea has some serious legs. I don't know that he's got the, again, the gumption to pull that off. But yeah, it's a nice thought.
You'd have to recast it, but
yeah. Well, we might get to that too. But first, first, tyt.com/dropout. tyt.com/dropout. Joe Biden, stop being so selfish. It's incredibly selfish to risk democracy because you'd like a second term. Gretchen Whitmer, Josh Shapiro, Andy Beshear, other governors, where are you? Get in the goddamn race already. We're gonna lose to the fascists. We'll be back. Back on TYT, Cenk, Michael, and Trae with you guys. Michael's got a couple more stories.
Third parties, take a listen to this.
Kennedy's independent run will devastate Biden's shot at re-election. Kennedy's polling at 15% with Democrats. If Biden's the nominee, 15% of American Democrats will have Kennedy as an option. Mellon scooping a critical piece of the base away from Joe.
Well, that's what Jesse Waters thinks. RFK Jr. running, he thinks will hurt Joe Biden. Some polling now out says the opposite. But Kennedy is not just your run-of-the-mill Democrat. His issues are very Republican on some things like vaccine, like Ukraine funding. And so Kennedy campaign insider put it to Mediaite, MAGA folks are upset over this news. Data guru Nate Silver noted on Twitter, the available numbers indicate a Kennedy third-party run is trouble for Trump. Not being remotely sarcastic when I say this is good news for Biden, Silver said, if Kennedy runs. I will say, more than just anecdotally, all of my interviews with people at Trump rallies asking them about Kennedy, they love him. When I say if Trump isn't on the ballot, who would you vote for? Many of them say that it's Kennedy. A poll done by John Zogby Strategies and commissioned by the American Values 2024 PAC found the following. The poll shows that in a general election between Trump, Biden, and a generic independent candidate, the result is Trump 40, Biden 38, and the independent candidate 17. In a matchup between Trump, Biden, and RFK Jr. as the independent candidate, the result is Trump and Biden tied at 38 with Kennedy at 19. The survey did not include Cornel West running as the Green Party candidate. So the Kennedy campaign advisor who spoke with Mediaite agreed with the fact that many of these in conservative media who are saying that an independent candidate is damaging to Trump. This is going to F Trump. Bobby's values are much more in line with patriots. He's against big pharma. He's pro-Bitcoin, decentralized so the government can control it. And that's where you have it. So the discussion really is whether or not a prominent run by someone who just became an independent from being a Democrat with one of the most iconic Democratic names in American history, Robert Kennedy Jr., what kind of impact he would have on the race.
So there's a couple of layers to this. First layer was when Kennedy first came out and started running against Biden, he got up to near 20 points in the Democratic primary, which is a bit stunning. And then he got a lot of press for that, which he should. That's a big, big number. But I called people inside the Marianne Williamson campaign, and not Marianne herself, but others. And I asked, what do you think? Is it the name recognition just because it's Kennedy? Or did the Democratic base all of a sudden turn into anti-vaxxers? And they're like, no, purely name recognition. They have no idea what he stands for. That was a while back, okay? And so that proved out to be correct. Because as he went and did a lot of media, Democrats found out who he is, and they're like, oh, no, we don't want that. No, we were thinking of another Kennedy, not that one, okay? And so his numbers plummeted, and he got mad at the Democratic Party. They're not holding debates. Should they hold debates? Absolutely right, okay? Are they gonna cheat in favor of Biden? You really didn't know that they were going to? Like, of course they're gonna support the incumbent president. I'm not in favor of that. I'm, and oftentimes I get as angry as he does, but like he's like, as if he's heartbroken, has to run independent, right? No, all this was enormously predictable. Now, when you get to that issue at hand today, who is he gonna hurt more? I don't think it's close. I gave you that context because whatever momentum he had on the Democratic side was ephemeral. It was based on his name and a misunderstanding of who he was. So when you get into what is Kennedy known for today, by far and away, number one is anti-vax, and then you get into the Bitcoins and the Ukraine war funding position, etc. Now, he's actually really good on the environment. He does come from the left initially, right? But nobody knows that, nobody's paying attention to that, and nobody's talking about that. They're talking about those conspiracy theory, right-wing talking points. Is that gonna take more from Trump than Biden? Of course it is. Which Democrats going around going, man, I wish I just had, I like the jobs numbers and I like that he's pro-choice, Biden is. I just wish he was more anti-vax. I just don't think that's a big number, and it has proven to be not a big number. So that's, and then I will say one last thing. I think that the misconception is also because people in DC, they don't know what progressives are at all. So they're like, I don't know, Bernie, RFK Jr., they're probably the same thing, right? Is Bernie anti-vax? I don't, they're all crazy radicals, right? So no, the Bernie supporters are not gonna support RFK Jr. He's nothing like us. So Trae, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like when RFK Jr. first became a thing, his campaign, everything you hear, he's got the last name Kennedy, he's running as a Democrat, and immediately think like, well, this is not going to be good for Biden, And the one thing most people knew if they knew anything about him was the anti-vax stuff. And so part of you goes like, well, the OG anti-vaxxers were like, coastal hippy dippy crystals and candles crowd, you know what I mean? So like if he draws those people away, we might be in trouble. But like you said, and then the early polling numbers all seemed, worrisome. But like you said, as it went along and he talked more and more, and it's like, Democrats started to notice like, oh, this guy's saying some kind of crazy sounding stuff, in addition to the already crazy stuff we knew about him. And then people on the right or right adjacent were like, hey, did you guys hear? This guy's saying some crazy sounding stuff. This is great. You know what I mean? Because like you said, Cenk, like they definitely have a higher number of the conspiracy types and those types of people, and that's who I think he would pull from. So it might seem kind of counterintuitive at first that it would work this way, but I feel like really when you think about it, for all the reasons you've already outlined, it totally makes sense. So more power to him, I guess. I hope that's how it plays out.
And there's also a faction of Republicans who will never vote for a Democrat. So Kennedy changing to an independent makes it a more palatable thing for a Republican who doesn't want to vote for Trump to vote for that third party candidate because they're not a Democrat. And that's, I think that's an important thing to point out here. There's more to discuss on this, but we've got to move on. But basically, there are people, though, who within the constructs of third parties right now, people like at Third Way, which is a centrist organization, at the No Labels that wants to prop up Joe Manchin, that they're saying that third-party candidates can't win, basically. Some of them are saying it, that No Labels is not, but Third Way is saying it, that you can't go in here thinking that because that may hand it to somebody else because a third-party candidate can't win that. But there's more time to discuss that. We'll get into it a little bit more deeply. But for now, it seems that the Kennedy thing is going to swing in Biden's favor, if it swings at all, and if he actually does enter the race for the long haul as an independent. Matt Gaetz made a lot of news earlier this week when he basically took out the Speaker of the House. He's continuing to make news now. According to a huge scoop from NBC News, Gaetz trashed the House Republicans' impeachment inquiry into Biden during a private online fundraiser with big GOP donors. You might be confused, and I guess we can see that Matt Gaetz and fundraiser appearing in the same sentence. You'd be right to feel that way. It's because Matt Gaetz loves to brag about the fact that he gets all this small dollar donations and not checks from corporations and fat cats, but we'll revisit that. These are quotes from that fundraiser, that online fundraiser that took place September 26th. This is Matt Gaetz speaking. I don't believe that we are endeavoring upon a legitimate impeachment of Joe Biden. They're trying to engage in a forever war of impeachment, and like many of our forever wars, it will drag on forever and in a bloody draw. I just don't get the sense that it is for the sake of impeachment. I think it's for the sake of having another bad thing to say about Joe Biden. From that same report, Gaetz told the attendees he meant no offense to Representatives Jim Jordan and James Comer, who are overseeing the closely watched probes, but he added, according to the recording, if this was serious, we would have sent a subpoena to Hunter Biden, which is ironic because just last month, Matt Gaetz took to Twitter and said, term limits vote, balanced budget vote, single subject spending bills, release J6 tape, subpoena Hunter, impeach Biden. We must do these things. The American people have waited long enough. A little bit of change of heart from the maybe gubernatorial candidate for the Republican nomination in Florida one day, Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, the only part I'll disagree with is not a change of heart. It's a change of language depending on the audience and message based on the audience. So, look, there's two different issues here. One is the fundraiser, and the other is what he said in the fundraiser. I'm actually okay with the fundraiser. That might surprise you guys, but he said he's not taking corporate PAC money, and unless he violated that pledge, and there were folks who were sending in corporate super PAC money to him there. If he violates that pledge, then I'm done with him. He has no redeeming qualities left at that point, etc. But if it's just people who are wealthy that are giving him money, that's still allowed. And you can see in Matt Gaetz's proposals for anti-corruption bills, I don't think he's getting corporate PAC money. The corporate PACs despise anti-corruption. They are the corruption. So we'll see if any of those guys were linked to those super PACs, or we might not see. But if they're just wealthy Republicans, that's old school and that's not great, but it's okay. So now in terms of the impeachment stuff, now ironically he's totally right when he's behind closed doors. They have no evidence. It's just the impeachment wars back and forth. Except for the fact that there was plenty of evidence on Donald Trump and there's no evidence on Joe Biden, and even Matt Gaetz knows it, and Rosendale knows it. They all know it. Even the most extreme Republicans know it. So he's right about that too. So what's he wrong about? Lying in public that he's in favor of impeachment and that, oh boy, they got this, right? So you tell me Matt Gaetz changed his mind between that tweet and that closed door meeting with the fundraiser? Get out of here. He didn't change his mind. He lies to you on a regular basis when he's in public. And that's to rile you guys up. Oh yeah, we got by. Oh yeah, we can do impeachment. In reality, of course, and they don't want to break the spell. Every right-wing host, every right-wing politician tells you they got plenty of evidence on Biden when they don't have a single piece of evidence. If a bunch of them came out and were like, half the Fox News hosts were like, okay, fine, we'll admit it. We have no evidence at all. We just don't like Joe Biden and we just want to smear him and impeach him because you guys correctly impeached Donald Trump. No, they're never gonna say that. So Matt Gaetz has to lie because his voters demand that lie. They want Biden to be guilty, whether he's actually guilty or not. So that's why he lies to them. Trae.
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, obviously, I can't stand Matt Gaetz. Hope he has an allergic reaction to his new hair product or something like that. Like, I'm not a fan, but I am here for this, for him, giving the Democrats sound bites and going after the other Republicans. I may be misremembering, but I feel like generally speaking, in the pre-Trump era, you didn't have a lot of infighting on the right. That was always my thing with them. Is like, man, they stick together generally. It don't matter what your crimes are. If you got the R by your name, they'll line up and circle the wagons. But so nowadays, I'm kind of digging it, watching them be at each other's throats like this, and the fallout of the McCarthy thing and all that. And Matt Gaetz is right at the forefront of it. Again, I'm no fan, but like you said, he is right about this impeachment stuff. And like earlier in the week, when he stands up in Congress and starts to talk, at first I see that and I'm like, oh God, I don't want to hear this guy talk. But then he stands up there and he's like, McCarthy and his ilk, they're not going to be able to keep calling Biden a senile old man as long as he keeps wrecking them in every single negotiation they have. And all of a sudden I'm like, all right, hear him out. Let's let him finish. Let's see where he goes with this. Because as long as they're sniping at each other like this, I'm kind of just sitting in the corner eating my popcorn. You know what I mean? So it's the only thing Matt Gaetz has done that I've been in favor of.
Yeah, well, look, I'll add two quick things to that. One is that, here was the second thing he said in that speech that was even better. He said he referenced all the lobbyist money and the corporate PAC money that the other Republicans are taking.
Yeah.
Okay, that is some good stuff right there. That is true, and even progressives haven't really had the courage to call that out. I don't know why, and I don't know what they're waiting for. But so give credit to Matt Gaetz on that. And then the last thing is, I think that there's a lot of value in infighting within a party. You're not supposed to just go bow your head to whoever the leader is and no, I don't have any opinion. Oh, you're not doing the right things. You're doing what the donors want. Okay, no, I bow my head. We have unity. No, I'm not in favor of that at all. That's not the problem with the Freedom Caucus. The problem is that their ass, at least half of them, are mental. Like, shut down the Department of Justice because they're investigating our daddy. Come on. If they weren't lunatics, then it would be an interesting fight. Right?
Mm-hmm. Defund the FBI. I mean, that's basically what they want to do as well, which is has the same roots as what Cenk's talking about.
Yeah.
And, this infighting has gone on a little longer than Kevin McCarthy. It forced John Boehner out. It forced Paul Ryan to throw his hands up. So this Freedom Caucus has caused a lot of problems for the Republican caucus in the House, and I think it's going to be a difficult couple of years for them, personally, because of this. And Matt Gaetz is now liberated, not that he's ever been silent, liberated to say whatever the hell he's thinking about, which is what he's doing now, talking about the impeachment, what he did on the House floor the other day. He's going to be a force that's just going to speak his mind in ways that he hasn't before, and he's got Trump behind him.
Okay, so everybody check out Michael's videos on youtube.com/theyoungturks because he interviews so many Trump supporters and the things they say are amazing. You guys are gonna love those videos. We don't cover all of them on this show. Make sure you're watching those videos because they're gonna blow your mind. And Trae's got a book out, TraeCrowder.com. You can also see dates where he's going to go and do stand-up, etc. Make sure you're checking him out. Trae, you're wonderful. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your brother. Shout out to Clay County. And when we come back,
thanks, guys.
When we come back, we have more amazing stories, including the government has started taking Giuliani's property. So we'll be back. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.